The following is rated TV MALSV. It contains strong language, violence, and nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the show where we talk about everything and anything nerdy. I am the one and only Devious Dave Rose. Thank you for tuning in to today's broadcast. This is episode 3, and I am joined once again by the one and only Doc Holliday.
It's always good to be here, Dave.
On today's show, we are discussing the upcoming Suicide Squad movie, which is currently being filmed here in Toronto, Canada. So I'm just going to show a few graphics right now. This is the new Suicide Squad logo, which is being promoted for the movie. And here we have the entire cast put together in their costumes and makeup, looking quite interesting to say the least. We've got Captain Boomerang, we've got Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Killer Croc, Diablo, and a few others. I'm not really too sure who they are. But that being said, these individuals, as I'm showing on the graphic right now, are playing their counterparts in this movie. And you have, for example, on the left here, we've got Will Smith, and he's playing Deadshot. Just next to him, we've got Jared Leto, and he's playing the Joker. After that, we've got, let's see here, I think it's Scott Eastwood. I'm not too sure who he's playing. No, that's Joel Kinnaman. I do apologize. I'm not too familiar with the faces with the names. He's playing Captain Flag. Sorry. And Rick Flag. Well, depends on what you're reading, but yeah, Joel Kinnaman. And we also have Jay Courtney, who's playing Captain Boomerang, who I'm actually quite interested in seeing his performance. So that should be quite interesting to see. We've also got Margot Robbie, who's playing Harley Quinn. And then finally, as Enchantress, we have Cara Delevingne. Delevingne. It's quite the French name. But that being said, it is an interesting cast. And as we've discussed previously on Anything Nerdy, it is somewhat interesting, to say the least, what we can expect from this. But unfortunately, our hopes aren't high. And I'm always willing to be proven wrong. And I'm always open to see what's out there. But with the proven record that DC has, I'm not optimistic. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be open to trying to check this out. So, again, that has to be considered all in the whole balance of things. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, once again, the cast, the whole ensemble there in their costumes. But let's move on to a scene, a screenshot, several actually, that perhaps Doc Holliday might want to speak a little more on, and all I have to say is Batman in his costume.
Oh man, that costume though. So I think the award for the worst Batman costume in history has finally been passed up. For years, it has been the George Clooney Batman costume that has made all Batman fans across the universe cringe. Now I think that honor goes to this costume.
Hold on. You're not a fan of the bat nipple?
With
the
that
bat
ugly
ass?
silver lining?
Or the bat crotch shot?
Yeah, seriously. Like, I want to slap whoever designed that thing.
That was Joel Schumacher who had his direct hand in that. I mean,
Oh
you might
God.
as well have made it a male pornographic movie because that seemed to be the direction that things were going in.
Yeah, seriously, it's just like a muscled out cod piece.
Well, Chicks did the car, right? I mean, that's Oscar-winning lines right there. Batman and Robin. Chris O'Donnell.
So what's going on with that obese looking bat on his chest?
It's an interesting costume to say the least. It very much does look sort of organic and worn down. I guess that's maybe what they're trying to go for with the whole Batman is old. Um, Again, basically taking canon for, a ride and totally just disrespecting it. You've got them creating a character that is going to be involved in the creation of the Justice League who is too old to really fit that sort of role, considering the established canon and so forth. And certain people have mentioned to me that what they're trying to go for is the new 52 chronology. But that being said, with 70 years worth of storyline and the fact that many different directors and screenwriters have taken liberties in utilizing previously told stories to try to make a good overall movie, I think it's a little bit of a cop out for them to go in this direction. This is the type of suit that Batman might wear if perhaps it was a bleak post-apocalyptic future scenario. His cowl would have to be a lot more worn down, but the texture and the, I guess, get up of the entire torso and the legs does seem to fit a more worn down, more aged character. That doesn't fit properly with Justice League and the storyline and the creation and so forth, but we can overlook that. But that being said, Batman should have a persona defined through also his, not just his actions, but his costume. Again, he is instilling fear into those criminals that are superstitious and, are scared of these sorts of things. Again, that's the whole psychology of Batman, that he's using that against the perpetrators that he's fighting against. And I can see where Doc Holliday is coming from. It's not that I have a particular hate for this costume per se, but for this particular episode of Batman's existence, coming into this whole new supposed timeline that we're going to have from DC, I'm, again, like Doc Holliday, a little concerned with what this is trying to represent and how overall it will affect the character. Doc Holliday?
Yeah. My theory on this is that since Suicide Squad ain't a primary Batman story, and by that I mean he's barely in it, the story is basically mainly about what Suicide Squad's gonna do and how this crazy group of villains even got together in the first place. So in the back of my head, I'm wondering if Hollywood just said, well, since Batman ain't gonna be in the movie much, why are we gonna spend all this money on making a decent Batman costume?
I do agree with you there. Now, what I want to move on to is the fact that, like I mentioned previously, Suicide Squad is now filming in Toronto, Canada. And the screenshots that I'm showing right now are basically behind the scenes screenshots of the action that's going on. So in the upper left-hand corner, that's a strip of Yonge Street that I'm quite well familiar with in the lower downtown area. And I know a lot of those different shops that are along the street there. Very cool scene with a airplane tail fin just basically destroyed and landed there on the street. We've got on the right, we've got Deadshot, and he's being confronted by military type people. And we've got Harley Quinn coming off a helicopter, it appears. We've got also, you can see Killer Croc there in the crowd. Looks really cool. Then at the bottom left, you've got a helicopter that's crashed into a bus on a street. And finally, another shot of that tail fin on the ground on that street called Yonge Street. So a lot of people here in Toronto have actually been complaining about the fact that this has been causing a lot of traffic jams and a lot of issues when it comes to getting around the city. And I agree. I've experienced a little bit about that, and it is problematic. But you know what? Even with the problems that it gives, I am going to say keep on doing this. There's been a ton of different movies, actually a ton of different superhero movies that have been filmed here exclusively in Toronto and the surrounding areas. We can talk about The Incredible Hulk, for example, which I thought was an incredible movie with Ed Norton. We can talk about perhaps X-Men. We can talk about a lot of different movies. Let's talk even about 80s retro movies. How about damn it, that movie. Short Circuit 2. Short Circuit 2 was filmed here in Toronto. So there's been a lot of different movies that have been filmed here, and it brings a lot of money to the city. It brings a lot of recognition to the city, and I just love the fact that when I'm watching a movie, I can actually say, hey, I know that spot, seeing that place in the background rushing by, even if it is just for a second. So for me, I just love the fact that we do have filming here in Toronto, and it just produces some great movies, in my opinion. But moving on from that point, I'm just going to put onto the next screen here a shot, well, actually 3 different shots of the Joker's new ride, his new car, his new wheels in Suicide Squad. And for someone who is, in fact, certifiably insane, but working for a covert operations team, his car is a little bit flashy, to say the least. Solid pink chrome with gold highlights, and some fairly big rims there. And you can see on both of the upper photos, you've got Batman there gripping onto the top of that car, and you can probably imagine that in the movie his cape will be animated. And down below you see just a shot of the car itself with Harley Quinn and the Joker inside. And in the middle of the screen you will see Jared Leto taking a break from his extraneous actions by wearing a nice camouflage boonie hat, yet sticking out like a sore thumb with his bleached white skin and extremely neon hair. Now, before we go on, Doc Holliday, I believe you may have had some comments on Jared Leto's current look.
Why is Joker driving? Okay, Joker's been around for 75 years, and he's never driven anything. He's never known to have a vehicle. I mean, I think, and I'm pulling this out of my ass, is I think he had an ice cream truck at one point, and it like got blown up in like one episode or whatever. Like, Joker's never had a vehicle, so why the hell is Joker riding around in a purple Bugatti? Like, seriously. Joker is supposed to be locked up in Arkham Asylum, and Harley Quinn is supposed to be pissed off trying to kill him, with the other Suicide Squad members trying to get her away from Joker. That's supposed to be what's going on. But like Dave said before, Hollywood's just taking their liberties with it and doing what they want. That's one of the reasons I believe this movie's just going to be over the top, just because you have Joker riding around in this ridiculous purple Bugatti. And hate to bring it up, but if you go to the Dark Knight and Yeah, you go to the Dark Knight. Joker never drives in that movie. It's always his goons driving, and even when it is, they're driving like stolen vans and shit like that. Like, where's Joker gonna get the money for this car? Because I don't see him stealing one.
That's a great point, and I guess we're gonna have to see the movie to figure out what happens there. But it is a little over the top, and I am also quite concerned. But you did mention one great name here that we're going to move on to because it's a great segue, and that is the one and only Harley Quinn. A character that I should remind every fanboy and fangirl out there was created through the animated series on television. So there's no particular reason to have this sort of faith or obsession with Harley Quinn when in fact this character again was only created through a television show that aired no more than 20 years ago. Definitely less than that, but it seems that way because there's been a lot since then, a lot of different animation styles for the show. But that being said, Margot Robbie is playing Harley Quinn, and from the looks that I'm seeing right now, I don't know whether or not it's a good representation, but that's what they're going with. On the picture on the left, you can see Deadshot picking her up and helping her out. So we're going to have to see whether or not this translates well from the character. But again, and again, I have to remind everyone that Harley Quinn was basically further supported by the fact that this was a character on a on a basically on an animated cartoon show. And at that point, it wasn't as dark. That particular cartoon wasn't as dark as it eventually did become, which is much closer to what Batman was, or is. It depends on who you talk. I don't consider the New 52 to be anything valid. So I might live in the past according to some people, but the fact is that, there's better storylines in the past than there is currently right now. But moving on, because we're here to talk about Suicide Squad, not about my gripes with with DC in general. And before we move on, I've got to say that some people have stated that I'm anti DC. And again, that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth because I grew up on DC. It was my number one and first thing that I learned about when it came to comic books. I could go on, and I'd probably make another episode about this here on Anything Nerdy regarding my relationship with DC. But the bottom line is, I was a DC fan before I was a Marvel fan. And just because I like Marvel a little more right now, to a certain extent, doesn't necessarily mean that every time that I go out to criticize DC, it's because I have it out for them. No. It's the fact that I grew up with such great stories, such great inspiring tales, that it saddens me to see its degeneration to what I currently see it as right now. But moving on, we're going to now talk about, just a little shortly, for Deadshot, being played by Will Smith. And on the screen that you should see right now, you will have Will Smith in the upper left-hand corner wearing what appears to be a 70s style getup. And this is a behind-the-scenes shot, so we do have to consider that. But this is something that we might see as perhaps a flashback in the movie. Now, in the right, we see his actual current getup, the one that he's going to use during the movie. Now, it's quite a drastic change from what we've seen in the comic book. But before we move on, we do have to remember that in the previous scene that we just saw, and I will bring it up once more, there we go, we've got Harley Quinn, and we've got Deadshot. Now, Deadshot seems to have two eyes, from what I'm seeing. And I'm just going to quickly go again. There's the other scene there. He's surrounded by all those military guys. Two eyes. And let's go back once more to that other scene. Two eyes. Okay, that's two eyes. Now, as we go back to the scene here with his current costume, Doc Holliday, any comments on his current medical success?
Are they throwing out the whole cybernetic eye angle? Because that was like one of the things that made Deadshot different than Deathstroke. Is he had one eye, he had this freaky accident, and then he had this weird cybernetic thing put in his eye to where he can basically aim at anything without fail. So, like, are they throwing that out and just saying, oh, now he has a special helmet that does that for him? Like, what are they doing? And back to what you were saying on the Quinn's look, I really feel like the costume they're giving her in this variation is a straight nod to the people that played the Arkham games on PlayStation 3 and 360, because that's exactly how she looked in the Arkham games. And basically, you don't got to do much with Harley Quinn. Just make her kind of annoying and give her giant hammer. That's all I want out of her.
And there you go. You've got that direct from Doc Holliday himself. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to wrap it up. And I want to tell everyone here, thank you so much for joining us. If you got anything to say, be sure to put it right down there in the comment section. Be sure to like and subscribe. And be sure to tune in next time here on Anything Nerdy. I am the one and only Devious Dave Rose. Doc Holliday is right here as my special guest. And as always, I remind everyone joining us, stay devious.